Welcome to the AW Services channel. This is a big boy backpack made by FaceLift, which I believe is possibly an in-house brand for the window cleaning warehouse. So I've taken the yellow 25 litre water tank off the top of it, which would sit here. I've undone the screws to remove the water tank, and all I've done is release the Jubilee clip that holds the output from the water tank to the pump, and I've just plugged that for now with a Sharpie pen, as you can see here. So this backpack has served me well for about 3 and a bit years now. I've not had any problems with that. However, when I last inspected it, I noticed a bit of corrosion on the battery terminals. Galvanic, dissimilar metal corrosion, because you've got tin alloys which are in the solder, and then you've got copper contacts on the battery itself. So all I'm going to do is reflow those and desolder them, and then I'm going to cut and clean the wiring up and put some push-on female spade terminals on there and insulate those, because I think it's time that this needed replacing. So I've just got a really dirt cheap soldering iron, which I use as my Reflow soldering iron. All I'm going to do is heat these terminals up, try to reflow some new solder into the terminals, just so that I can remove them easier. I'm not too sure of the composition of the old solder. I doubt it's a lead tin solder. It's probably a more cheaper green environmental solder with lots of alloy in there. So I'm not too sure on what temperature, but here we go, it's starting to release. When you do this, you need to make sure that you don't drop your soldering iron across the battery terminals, because there's quite a bit of current in the battery, and the last thing you want to do is weld your soldering iron to the battery terminals, short the battery out, start a fire, kill your battery, blah 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 blah. Got one off, but the positive is proving a bit tricky. Here we go. Right, just going to now reflow some solder onto this terminal on the negative side. So it's nice and silvery and tinny. Once I've done that, I'm going to heat it right up and then get my suction tool in there and remove as much of that solder as I can. Try to get this terminal as flat as it was before it had solder on there. Positive side. Right, that's that both desoldered. A scrap of sandpaper or emery paper, just clean up the contacts and underneath of them as well, to make sure there's no other additional solder that's hanging on. Just going to try and test fit my 2 female insulated terminals. I bought these about 5 years ago. 100 blue female spade 6.3mm female terminals. You can get them in Halfords. I tend to buy these in bulk from a better supplier. Yep. They're going to fit perfectly. So the old battery wires, red is positive, yellow is negative. I'm going to trim up a couple mil back from where the old solder was. With my wire strippers. Nice clean copper, not dirty or black. I like to twist the wires and double them over, so I've got a bit more thickness and better conductivity. And push on my terminals. And then I'm using a proper heavy duty crimping tool. I'm going to put the conductor in there, just give it a pinch, line it up, ensure the wires push all the way in, and give it a proper crimp. These tools are about 25 to 30 pounds for a decent one. I've had this for about 10 years. Tensioned it properly and it does the job. It's better than using the old school terminal crimps, which don't really do much other than damage the wire itself. So positive onto red. It's going to be a bit of a push because I've cleaned all the terminals up. Yellow onto negative. Going to gently give that a bit of persuasion. That's why when you de-solder the terminals, you need to reflow the solder to get them to actually sit on properly. I'm happy that those are absolutely fine. I'm just going to push them down now, and then all I'm going to do, petroleum jelly or Vaseline or which other alternative you buy, I'm just going to put a dab of this over the remaining part of the terminal where it's bent over from the battery in its natural position. Give it a good wipe around with some of that, and because it's petroleum jelly, it will act as a barrier, insulator, sealer. It will stop the promotional growth of corrosion, and it has brilliant water resistant properties as well. And just a bit over the end, stopping the moisture getting down in the battery wires there. So that's my battery terminals done. Rotate the pack round so you're now looking at what would be the front of the backpack. I've still got, and I still use my plastic cover. Position 1 is speed controller, position 2 is pull out. That works perfectly. But basically that's how you improve upon or repair wiring to the battery of a big boy or a FaceLift big boy 2 backpack from the window cleaning warehouse and FaceLift. But all I've done is de-soldered the connections. I've then reflowed the solder to clean the contacts up. Once I've done that, I've then crimped two 6.3mm female insulated terminals onto that, and then push those onto the battery. And then with the use of some Vaseline, I've then just insulated and added a bit of waterproofing to the battery terminals itself. Another good tip really is to make sure that your wires aren't bouncing around, because if your wires bounce around and vibrate, that will cause dry joints and failures within your wiring. Welcome back. Just had to take a quick break and get some bits. So the circuit board, which is part of the LEDs that you see through the front of the backpack, one screw is holding it in. There should be two, so I've just gone and found another screw that I had spare. But on the back of the circuit board you can see it's quite white and frosty looking. That is a crude conformal coating. It could be PVA, latex, it could be a silicone based or a resin. All that does is stops water and moisture attacking the circuit board, corroding the parts and then causing short circuits. So that is held in by two screws. So if you service your backpack, you take it apart periodically at any point, just double check that you haven't lost a screw from that. You've also got two screws that hold the battery saddle clamp in place. And other than that, there isn't a great lot in there really, other than the pump, some connections, but mine is absolutely dry. There's no water leaks, and I've said in previous videos I'm impressed with this backpack, its construction over the competitor, which I'm not going to name or slag them off, but you know, this one is better. There aren't any American wire nuts in there. I've not had any faults, so I'm going to put that back together now. Okay, both screws have been replaced, which hold the circuit board in place. The circuit board really is just part of the charging circuit. It shows you your LED status lights, the charge. That's all put in. I said two screws holding that in. I'm now going to replace the battery. So battery orientation goes in with the cables to the right hand side, and that just gently sits in there. Just for anyone that wasn't sure, this battery is a 12 amp hour battery. It's the original battery that came with it. I haven't replaced it, and yet again I kept it charged, ensured that it's not been too discharged, and I'm impressed with it. Very good quality again. So the battery saddle sits in, Phillips screw, quite hard to get to because it's at an angle. Screw one side of the saddle in place, and then the other screw should just drop in. Like so. Takes a bit of a fiddle to get it to line up because it's quite springy. Battery is now in, it's not loose, there's no vibration whatsoever. Our battery wires are our red and yellow connectors. We also have an inline fuse here, which I've mentioned in a previous video. This is your main fuse for your backpack. You need to make sure that these contacts inside the cap of the backpack haven't gone white and creamy with corrosion, which mine haven't. And then you need to make sure that's tight, hand tight together. And then you've got your battery wires, which are on your red connectors, which will only plug in one way, like so. And then you've got the connector for the pump and the control board, which is the yellow and blue and the red and yellow connector. So it's on a yellow connector with two different coloured wires. Clip those back together. You can also, with a cable tie, just secure those in place so that they don't flap around. And if they don't flap around, you're not going to get any broken wires or any problems like so. So I'll just go and grab a cable tie. I'm just going to put a cable tie around the body of the pump. It's the only place really where I've got accessibility. Where have I got somewhere where I can put this where it's not going to foul on the pump? Just on the side of the tubing out of the pump, so the the wire, the tube that goes to your waterproof pole brush. I just secure those in place. Just give it a bit of a twist. Grab that connector there and just attach that to that tubing so it's not loose, it's not going to flap around. Cut off the excess from the cable tie because that winds a lot of people up. So now all of my wiring inside the backpack isn't going to flap around and vibrate, and that's pretty much it. So in this video I've reattached and secured the circuit board. I've checked the conformal coating or waterproof resistance on the circuit board to make sure that's not coming off. My battery I've worked on the previous video. I've got no leaks from the pumps. I'm really happy with how the rest of that's gone. So yeah, that video is done. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, support the channel, help it grow, and press the bell icon for notifications when new videos are published. Thank you for watching AW Services.